The first suicide, I was on shift, but not directly involved. And it was a female youth that took her life. And I saw more the way that affected the staff that were working with her. And then we had to work in those units after and just like how it was affecting the other youth that were in there. And the timelines on all of these are kind of messed up still for me. But the second one was directly involved with me. She was a youth on my caseload. So we're case managers. Our biggest job, I would say, is to make sure people don't come back into custody. So like release planning, making sure that they have something to go out to. They're not just going to come back and make more victims. And so she was on my caseload. We connected. We talked every night. And so I was supposed to talk to her at 9:00. We have an institutional response team. And when shit's popping off, you got to go handle it. So we had an incident around 8:30. I went and helped with that. And at 9:30, they called a code red, which is a medical emergency. So jetted off to go with that. And it was her. And she had tied up and was behind the door. So we had to get into the door. I remember all kinds of stuff, like the color of her skin, the sound the body made as we tried to do CPR. I was with two amazing COs that or JCs, juvenile counselors, what we call ourselves at the youth centers, who used to be paramedics. So lots of medical experience there. I'm a volunteer firefighter, but I didn't have that training at that time. And we worked on her, and they brought her back. But I remember the one guy looking over at me and saying, "She's gone, man. They're just gonna take her to the hospital, and the family's gonna say goodbye." And the in charge officer came and asked me to go on the ambulance and follow her to the hospital. And somebody else, I can't remember who it was, said, "No, like he's not going. He's too," like they could see it on me. And so went through the motions, and I felt okay after. These girls were struggling with so much, and that wasn't lost on me, but we did everything we could. And after that, we had a youth that was in custody that had been released and then taken her own life in the community, and she was connected to us. These kids come in and out their entire life, right? And we're asked to connect with them on a different level. But once they get into the community, our job stops, and the community workers' jobs start there. There's really no transition into that,
right?
Unless we make the effort to connect them. So,
which has got to be tough on both sides.
Oh,
right?
It's terrible, man. I still have kids that call me and tell me how they're doing. So this next one, which is actually the one that I think affects me the most, I was in the unit, the female unit, doing rounds or whatever, and she was in her room. I didn't know her all that well, but I knew of her from the unit. And they at the end of the night, we got to do these checks. So we go around, check the rooms, and I push on the door again, and it, like, I knew she was in there, but I couldn't get the door open. So I'm like, in my prime football days, so I'm 330 pounds or whatever. I don't fit through a door easily, right? So I like push on this heavy steel door that opens to the inside, and I finally get through it, and the door closes behind me, and I realize she's behind the door. So very similar to the other girl, but she's up in the air. So I grab her and I put her up on my shoulder, and there's nothing there. Like, it's just dead weight. So I'm like trying to get it loose, and as I get it loose, she starts fighting, like coming back, and I'm working that, trying to get the thing loose from the hinge. Meanwhile, I guess her roommate or somebody knew that something was going on, so they got the attention of all the staff, called the necessary code for backup, but nobody could get in because we're stuck behind the door. So now I'm stuck in the door, trying to get her. And if I let her down,
Yeah,
the pressure's back on,
for sure.
right? I can't remember how long that was, but at some point I unhooked it and we fell away from the door, and she was fine. She recovered. So I got in there just in the right time. The next day I came into work and she wanted to talk and say thank you. She had this scar around her neck, I remember. But that girl still calls me today and she tells me about her kids. She's got these 2 dogs that she calls her kids. She's living up in Thompson, Manitoba. And she'll call me every now and then. And yeah, so we get some wins in corrections, but that one sits with me for sure. Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it's just, when you have, as a dude and a guy that like people look to for all the solutions and the problem solver, and you don't have an answer for a situation you're in, it's scary as fuck. And I was scared in there. I didn't know what to do. She was like pissing on me. Like I just knew that I was in a situation where I just needed to hold on, but I didn't have the answer. Yeah.
At what point when you're going through those situations, do you realize yourself that like you've probably got to talk to somebody? Like, was it right after any of those, or like do you have to go through a process for a while before you came to the point where you're like, I've got to deal with this?
Yeah, I had to find out the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's the way most people find out.
Yeah. So I'd say it took me, if we skipped a bunch of steps, it took me about 3 years to get to the point where I knew something was really wrong. But slowly after that, like I never took time off work, proud, whatever. I don't even know if I needed it, because taking time off work sometimes isn't the best thing to just sit in your thoughts. And my obsessiveness kind of helps me along the way now achieve a lot of things. But I went back to work, and we had those incidents just keep happening, right? Like there was no more completed suicides, thank God. And our work adjusted to make sure that the youth were safe. There was training that came out, and eventually that kind of stopped again. But the trauma was still there. Those kids were still there, and you could see like the self-harm, and yeah, it's just very difficult to see. And so I think the first thing I noticed was that I wasn't really the good guy I used to be. Like I was having trouble going home. I was drinking more than I should. And then I was kind of the life of the party. So everybody had a young family, just one daughter at the time. I have 2, Hunter and Hazel, and my wife, Michelle. And at the time, I would really struggle to go home when I really liked to go home. And then the next thing that happened was I was having trouble going into work. And I remember driving down the highway and being like, if I ran into that pole, I wouldn't have to go to work. And I live outside of the city, so just a little town, just about a 20-minute, 30-minute drive outside the city. So it's a nice drive. I always appreciated it. Never a semi on that highway that I remember, but this one night I was driving home and there was a semi on the highway. And I remember thinking, if I hit that semi, I wouldn't have to go to work. Like that's the thought process, was like, this would be my excuse. Like everybody would understand that. So that was obviously getting a little scary. Then one day I was watching Hunter, my daughter. She was probably 4. We hadn't had Hazel yet. And I'm in my house, day off, did a bunch of stuff. I have an 1.5 acres. I love working in the yard. I'm an outdoors guy through and through. And I had come inside. Michelle was working, because at that time we were probably working, like that ships in the whatever, just passing by.
Yeah.
So she's working evenings. I'm probably just off that day. Or I don't remember all the details, but I remember being like, oh, I should check on Hunter. So I go upstairs, and she's got a bedroom right up the stairs, eh? So I go up the stairs, I go to open the door, and it doesn't fucking open. And I'm like, holy fuck. Instantly, I'm at the jail. I could smell it. I can see it. I can feel it. The door, the wooden door with a regular door handle, felt cold like a jail door. I got goosebumps now. And I pushed on that door so hard, I almost knocked it off the hinges. It still has a hole where my shoulder kind of went in. And my sweet 4.5-year-old daughter is sitting there playing Barbies. She's got Barbie in each hand, looking terrified at her dad. And I'm like, fuck. So I guess there was a backpack behind the door, just offering enough resistance to give me that trigger. And I was like, holy shit. Like, you know, that look on her face, she doesn't remember it. I've talked to her a couple times about it. That look on her face bothered me more than a lot of things, right?